355 days into 2022, give or take 1 or 2 dozens because I suck at counting in anything math related. Most game releases are behind us, and the Steam Summer Sale is keeping us company for the rest of the year. If you're watching this in 2023, then everything I've said here so far absolutely does not apply to you, so just pretend I'm starting the video here. The fact is, 2022 was a great year for gaming, especially indie titles. So much so, in fact, that some awesome games may fly under the radar for some people, due to the sheer amount of them. With that in mind, I took a look back at some of the games I played and want to play this year and came up with a list of 10 that I think are absolutely worth a look. Before we begin though, I need to outline some premises. First off is that almost nothing that exists is a must-play in life. Tastes change, and as such, so does whatever is a must-play for someone. With this in mind, what I qualify as must-play games are games that either do something really innovative or games that do whatever non-innovative things they do extremely well. Furthermore, while I absolutely think games like Cult of the Lamb, Stray, Tunic, Vampire Survivors, and many of the high-profile indies deserve a spot in many lists like this one, I won't be mentioning them here. The reason is precisely that they are likely to already be included in many of these lists. My objective is to showcase some other really good experiences that may have been overlooked. As such, this list will be focusing on games that are lesser known, which I qualify via the amount of Steam reviews a game has. Most titles here are between 1,000 and 2,000 reviews on Steam, with a few under that and a few above that. It's not a great metric, I know, but it's as good as any. These won't be completely obscure and you will likely have heard of a few, but I do hope it helps you find something new to play. And hey, if there is interest, I can always do a video with way more obscure titles. Last, but certainly not least, remember that this is a list to get you interested in the game, and not a full review for each of them. I have reviewed 2 titles on this list, and I'll link that in the description, and I will definitely update the description with more if I end up reviewing more games in this list in the future, which I probably will. But due to the straits, I won't spend too much time on each game. I hope you can understand. Oh, and just so you know, there's no specific order to the titles displayed here, it's just the order in which I wrote their bits in the script. Alright, without further ado, here we go! The first game on this list is Endoparasitic. This was a personal favorite of mine this year, not only because of what the game actually is, but also because it was my best performing review in this channel, which absolutely blew my mind. In Endoparasitic, you play as a researcher doing, well, research on a deadly parasite. Except that it escapes containment, transforms a bunch of people into monsters, and right in the beginning of the game you end up getting 3 of your limbs ripped off your body, leaving only your right arm. Always fun when that happens, right? This is an extremely unique game that incorporates your character's situation into gameplay. Due to having only one hand, you can only do one action at a time. If you have to move, you gotta put away your weapon. If you want to shoot, you have to stop moving. If you want to reload, you have to open your inventory and drag bullet by bullet inside the gun, which is a pain, but I imagine loading a gun with only one hand in your mouth is also a pain. The game is decently challenging if you're not great with resource management, which is vital as your inventory is limited and bullets occupy a lot of space. The best part is that playing the game with the mouse means you'll be probably doing a lot of effort dragging it around your mousepad or table, like the character's probably making a ton of effort to move around with only one arm. This is a mix of theme and gameplay that I don't often see, with original controls and ideas on top of that, which is why Endoparasitic is on this list. If you want to know more, I have a review video for this title listed in the description below. River City Girls, the great beat-em-up game from 2019, is back with another installment. This is a bit of a late addition to the list as it came out a mere 9 or so days ago at the time of publishing the video, but it's absolutely deserved. It was easily my favorite beat 'em up that I played this year for plenty of reasons. The game has a nice sense of humor, great colors and art style, and a solid soundtrack. The character arts for the cutscenes are awesome too. There is co-op, and plus, if you were a fan of the first game, you will feel right at home here, considering this picks the story up right after the end of the first one. In fact, if you're a fan of the first game, you will also feel right at home with the gameplay. It plays as the first one did, but better in all fronts. And if you didn't play the first one, do it! It's a solid title. But to describe it in a way that makes sense to newcomers, it does most things a brawler should, and it does them very well. There are 6 characters to choose from, all with different and cool combos. Plenty of objects to pick up and use in your brawl, things to destroy, money to collect, stores to visit, and more. And it doesn't stop there. The game also leans a lot into RPG elements. You have levels, you have quests, the ability to recruit and use new supporting characters in combat, and even a social media app that can be used to see messages and things like that. This mix of genres works incredibly well and made the game a delight to experience. It is obviously not without its issues, but as I said, it was my favorite beat 'em up of the year. Alright, now for the third game of the list, Case of the Golden Idol. This is perhaps the best detective game we got in 2022 and one of the best ones in recent years. Lots of people have compared it to the masterpiece that is Return of the Obra Dinn, and there is merit to the comparison. Heck, this game even earned Lucas Pope's praise, and for a good reason. In the game you have around 12 cases that are all great in their own way. While I did find some easy, it didn't change the fact that they were all fascinating and really well built. They are also all built around and connected by the titular Golden Idol, and the payoff to this huge 12 case long build-up is absolutely phenomenal. Gameplay-wise, you have basically 2 halves to each stage, the called exploring half and the thinking half. You can freely switch between the two. While exploring, you get a point-and-click style gameplay that allows you to gather clues in the form of keywords. You then head over to the Thinking tab to use those keywords to complete sentences and form the sequence of events that resulted in the usually gruesome scene you see on your screen during the exploring half. The puzzles are quite clever, and piecing together the events that happened is an absolute blast. Again, this is a game that Lucas Pope of Obra Dinn fame himself endorsed, and it's deserved. If you're a fan of detective games, don't sleep on this title. And speaking of sleeping, as the next game in our list we have Citizen Sleeper. This is an incredible narrative-driven adventure often compared to Disco Elysium. You are a sleeper, which is a source of digital human mind in an artificial body. You're being hunted by a company that owns said body, and your goal per se is to find a way out of your situation, while at the same time surviving in an abandoned station-turned-city, which is, according to the Steam store page, held together by anarchic alliances, ramshackle factions, and a shared desire to be free from the gravity of corporate control. And trust me, this absolutely is a struggle for survival as you rush against time in more ways than one, but no spoilers. The gameplay takes inspirations from tabletop RPGs. Every day or cycle you roll dice. You can then use the resulting numbers to perform actions throughout the station. The higher the dice number you use, the bigger the chances of success in the action. There are skills you can level, unlocking perks, bonuses, and options related to that skill that help you in certain tasks and areas. And of course, due to how the game works, you have to pick and choose your paths each day, as you won't have the action points, time, and energy to do them all. This is an incredible cyberpunk world that I was glad to experience, with great writing and narrative. If this even remotely seems like something you would enjoy, I highly recommend giving it a shot, as it really is the best narrative indie game we got this year, to my knowledge. And in the halfway point of the list, we have Signalis. This is potentially the best classic-style survival horror game that we got in 2022. There are lots of things to praise about this title, such as the great sci-fi setting, wonderfully retro visuals, and incredibly fitting soundtrack, but what attracted me most was the cryptic and really interesting storyline. As the Steam store page says, you play, quote, as Elste, a technician replica searching for her lost partner in her lost dreams, close quotes. If it sounds a bit confusing to you, don't worry. This is one of those games with so many layers to its story that videos explaining all the details will still be coming out months from now. This is a fascinating story to experience and to talk about, which I love in a game. Aside from the top-notch, well, everything else, this game also has solid gameplay in the style of the classic survival horrors like the original Resident Evils, with all the great qualities and some of the downsides that come with it. You get your map to run in, you go from place to place collecting keys and backtracking, killing zombie-like creatures and scavenging for resources that quickly fill your inventory and force you to go store stuff that you don't need. Honestly, if you're a fan of the classics, like Resident Evil, you will feel right at home here. If you want to know more, I have a review video for this title listed in the description below. Next up on this list is Fracture Yomi. This might be surprising to some of you given the negative reception that a lot of people had to the game, but trust me, it is on this list for a reason. This reason is mainly the fantastic and in my opinion quite unique during 2022 presentation. It's built in the spirit of classic samurai films and it absolutely shows in everything about the game. From camera angle to soundtrack, color palettes, and many other design choices, the game feels like a premium cinematic experience, and I mean that in the best way possible. Even the story, while not amazing, follows in the lines of an epic movie. You have a young swordsman, a vow to his dying master, and a classic revenge tale. Fracture Yomi knows what it wants to emulate with its art style and design, and it absolutely manages to accomplish its goal. Gameplay, however, is where the game drops its standard of quality a bit, at least according to quite a few players. Fracture Yomi is a side-scrolling action-adventure game with a few easy puzzles and plenty of combat to be had. The problem here is that set combat leaves quite a bit to be desired, with plenty of reviews citing sloppiness, repetitiveness, and overall lack of weight, which sucks because it is a big part of the game. Due to this, quite a few people recommend against Fracture Yomi, which might make it a controversial addition to this list, but as I said, I'm also trying to highlight games that are unique and worth experiencing for many aspects. And in this case, it's the presentation. Fracture Yomi's cinematic flair makes all issues worth dealing with, given that I had not seen anything quite like it before I played this game. Due to that, I recommend watching a video, seeing if it's something you might be interested in, and giving it a try if you can. It's an experience worth having. Alright, the 7th spot goes to Who's Lila, potentially the most unknown game in this list. Who's Lila is a narrative-focused point-and-click horror game with many possible ways to finish your tale. The horror is implemented very well, not relying on the use of jump scares, but instead reaching its goal via its narrative and themes. The story starts off fairly run-of-the-mill. A girl suddenly goes missing, and the main character was the last one to see her alive. As you get grilled by her friends and potentially even law enforcement, and try to find out the truth yourself, you end up in many different situations with just as many possible outcomes. And let me tell you what outcomes these are. As I said, the game starts fairly run-of-the-mill, but it goes to some really great and unexpected places really soon. And how do you go down a specific route, you might ask? Well, that's where Who's Lila's biggest innovation comes in. Via your character's face. I know, you might be confused, but let me explain. The screen is usually divided into two halves. Whatever is going on in the game and your main character's face. When people talk to you or something happens, you have a set amount of time to use your cursor to drag parts of his face, such as the eyebrows or the mouth, and change his expression. You can mimic surprise, fear, happiness, amongst others. Whatever face you display will be the answer to whatever is happening. So, for example, if someone's accusing you of murdering the girl, displaying happiness is probably gonna get you called a psychopath. This is a fascinating mechanic and kept me hooked throughout the game, even if it can be a bit unreliable at times. To add to it, this game also has a great art style with awesome extra palettes that you can unlock if you want to change the look of the game. Honestly, this game is just an incredibly immersive and unique way to tell a story, and it's a clear example of why I play indie games. It's rare to come across ideas like the ones displayed here, which is why the game is on this list. Next up, we have Infernax. Have you played the original Castlevanias? Do you like them? Well, if so, watch on, dear viewers, because I have the game that is just for you. Infernax is a Metroidvania in the most classic sense of the word. You get new abilities as you progress, which in turn allow you to find new paths and bosses, and repeat until you finish the game. It does so wonderfully though, with tight controls and platforming, as well as plenty of different offensive options to choose from. For example, I'm a massive fan of the spells in this game. You can also find secrets, engage with the upgrade system, and everything else you'd normally expect from the genre. I cannot stress this enough. This is a really solid gameplay loop that felt really good to play through. That's actually why it's on the list, being an incredible old-school Metroidvania. On other aspects, you also have an interesting approach to the story. You have multiple endings, 4 of them, which you get based on many choices made throughout the game. It's usually the basic good and evil system, but it's still nice to have it in the game, especially because your choices can get you to secret bosses and even affect whole areas. The old-school style gameplay is also perfectly complemented by the visuals and soundtrack, which are both great. Just be warned, the game can be pretty tough at times. Now, I know this is the 4th horror game in this list, but I promise it's the last one. Plus, Endoparasitic and Who's Lila are pretty tame in the whole horror aspect of things, and they all have different gameplay. And trust me, just like the first 3, this game, or games I guess, absolutely deserve to be in this list. I'm talking, of course, about Faith Unholy Trinity. The trilogy is incredibly unique in its presentation, boasting DOS-style graphics and a retro soundtrack that somehow both end up working in favor of the game's horror. Furthermore, the game doesn't actually fully rely on jump scares, instead masterfully building an unsettling and disturbing horrific atmosphere that leaves you on edge throughout the games. The theme is also really interesting to me, being very biblical in nature, as you play a priest struggling against demons and satanic cults. In terms of gameplay, it plays as an adventure game with some puzzles to be completed and spirits to be exorcised. Your main weapon for lots of the time is your holy crucifix, which you can raise to cleanse objects and fight back against some of the things you will meet. The gameplay might not be anything special or innovative, but the presentation and the way this trilogy creates horror are both top-notch, making this a well-deserved recommendation. And on to the last game, Dom Keeper. Potentially the most well-known game in this list, Dome Keeper is a sort of roguelite, sort of survival, tower defense game. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but I do know that it sees the player, well, keeping their dome. It really is like it sounds. You crash land into a planet, and you must accomplish a goal that depends on your chosen game mode before aliens destroy your dome. While the presentation here is great, what truly makes it a remarkable experience and potentially my favorite roguelite of the year is the gameplay. The game works in waves. You have a timer that ticks down every second, and when it does finish ticking down, you get attacked by aliens, and you have to be inside your dome to use its weapons to kill the aliens before they break your dome and kill you. The game doesn't wait for you to be ready, so time management is vital. Between waves, you get to mine under your dome for resources, which you can then use to buy upgrades for your weapons, your character, etc. In fact, the timer counter isn't even visible to you by default. You have to buy the upgrade to see it. If you successfully complete a run, you get to unlock new things to use on future runs, such as gadgets, new game modes, new difficulty settings, and even a new character that vastly changes how the mining works. Honestly, you guys, I have no idea what sort of magic Dome Keeper does on me, but every time I open the game I spend hours playing through it before forcing myself to close it so I can be productive. And make no mistake, this game can be really tough depending on your difficulty settings. And alright, that's it. I hope this video was useful to you and that you managed to find something new to get, potentially during this Steam sale. If you did enjoy the video, please do leave a like and subscribe as it really helps out the growth of the channel. But above all else, leave a comment. Tell me what you think of my selection and what your own favorite indie games of the year were. Plus, I would love feedback on the video itself. I've never done a list of recommendations video before, so I'm looking for tips to improve. Remember, I absolutely love hearing from you all. That aside, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you hopefully in the next video. Bye bye!